is it doing now?
This is quite unusual, I've got to say. Just taking a look here, they are really forcing themselves into the vehicle, now pulling the suspect out of the vehicle, down to the ground, and now pummeled by these officers as they take him into custody. You can see a whole pile up there as they now place him on his on the pavement there and into handcuffs. Now they're going to clear the.
So the cops got a really hot suspect being pummeled to the ground after a DUI chase that started in Chino. Let's get some more of that. Here's some more of the footage. Here we go.
California Highway Patrol chasing a blue Lexus. Suspected DUI driver wanted for multiple crimes, including ramming a Chino PD police officer during this pursuit. Started out in San Bernardino in the Chino area, chased him on to the 60 freeway, just entered LA County within the half hour.
So the police pursuit started in Chino, wound up in Los Angeles. More close-up of it. Here's the Fox 11 report on this. Here we go. We thought. As they show them, yes, it shows them.
They're breaking that window. You can imagine the glass is shattering at this potential suspect too. They're not letting this happen. And this suspect has to know they are not playing. So now doors open. My guess is they're going to pull this guy. He's out. Is that the airbag? It's hard to tell if the airbag deployed during that whole thing.
It's possible.
And they are not playing.
No kidding,
I think
they're
I've seen
not
that before.
playing. Oh, well, some more in that report here. Oh, we got one more shot. Let's see what the KTLA-5 report shows. Maybe, if it will go. KTLA-5, as you see them, more of the officers as they got a close-up of it on that, as you see they're getting ready to
that window
on that.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's going to keep smashing that until it breaks out. The driver's staying put, though. Look at that. He's going to knock that window completely out, and we'll likely see either they try to drag him out.
Yes, we saw that. Yes, they drug him out. Probably kicked the 11 crap out of the poor dude. But he was suspected of DUI and ran from the cops, and maybe we need to get more of that. Maybe we'll have a little bit more on that later. Let's see, sperm racing. Say it ain't so. Here we go.
Become an Olympic sport, but it's sure creating quite the fan base, and that fan base raised over $1 million for the world's first ever live sperm race today.
Eyewitness News reporter Tim Pulliam live in downtown Los Angeles. He's going to tell us what this is about. And Tim, I am confused. Can you enlighten us a little bit?
Mark's confused.
You know, it's a climactic story. It's called the sperm race, and it's young men putting their manhood to the test to see how fast their swimmers can go in front of a sold-out crowd. Mysterious white stuff shooting from.
I don't think it's too mysterious to climactic. Oh, they had some fun with that one, no doubt. Sperm racing. Hadn't heard of that. Scott Bessent. Well, more of the Trump stuff. Well, let's get to the Donald J. Here's the intro from Donald J. 100-day speech. Here we go.
And a lot of auto jobs coming. Watch what's happening. The companies are coming in by the tens. You got to see what's happening. They all want to come back to Michigan and build cars again. You know why? Because of our tax and tariff policy.
There you see the great Donald J. Trump as he makes his entrance into that. He's going right after him with the Trumps. We'll have some more clips of that later. Here's Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. High quality jobs returning to the U.S.
Again, the goal here is to bring back the high
quality industrial jobs to the U.S. President Trump is interested in the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. We don't need to necessarily have a booming textile industry like where I grew up again, but we do want to have precision manufacturing and bring that back. And another important, very important function of this that does not get talked about enough is national security. President Trump, his overriding the concern and belief is that economic security is national security is economic security. And we saw during COVID that our supply chains got cut off. And we need to bring back a lot of those supply chains, whether it's
1000%. That's the biggest thing. If things go haywire, let's say we have a war like COVID, or I'm not like COVID, but a war, and we have to have the things like we didn't have in COVID, we're going to be in even deeper trouble. That's what Scott Bessent, the great Donald J., is talking about. Carney, the new elected Prime Minister of Canada, gets cold cocked. Here we go.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize
that has got to be he was cold cocked by that audience. That's got to be the weakest reaction I have ever seen from that. Oh, Trump will never take us. Man, that's supposed to be Kristi Noem with the purse snatching. She had $3,000 in it and a $4,000 purse. That's a little interesting. Guess what? Illegal alien stole it. Who's been deported and all this other stuff. No wonder, and we'll deal with that more with the great Donald J. coming in. More from Scott Bessent and Caroline Levitt on the Chi-Coms. Here we go.
And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by.
Yes, it is. And Bezos deserves to have his stuff really, really, really shut down. Here, the sergeant who was shot at and took some in that Victorville chase speaks out. Here we go.
Shot multiple times by an armed man at a high desert gas station. And now he's back on the job and opening up about the experience. The sheriff is also speaking about the increasing dangers his men and women face every day. Nicole Comstock has the story.
I was shot in my right thigh, my left calf, the bottom of my right foot, and one round went through my taser and into my vest.
Hey, stop! San Bernardino County Sheriff Sergeant Shane Anderson recounts this harrowing shootout in the high desert. He was responding to a call of an armed man threatening to kill his own girlfriend.
Step 5, I'm hit. Shots fired.
That guy is definitely lucky to be alive. Getting shot that many times and being able to be back on the job the next day, absolutely 1000%. Almost a major, not a minor miracle. There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 or close. Evil at B Network, Rumble X. I don't know, Rumble's giving us trouble. I think we're on YouTube. Looks like it's working. Lots of stuff coming in. 100-day speech by Donald J. Trump, sperm racing. Never.
One never knows what kind of entertainment people want to watch.
That one is a new one. I guess it was some sort of charity thing going on, but that was, I got a chuckle out of that one. That dude coming from Chino to LA, the CHP doesn't mess around.
Having firsthand knowledge.
Yes,
of
I
that.
was waiting for you to say that. I wondered if that was deja vu or brought back some memories.
Yeah, I'm getting PTSD from it. And I need a cookie.
We'll get into that here in a sec. That's the first time I've seen him do that. Well, since 1981, I think. Well, they didn't bust the window.
Oh, no, come on.
No, they usually don't. They usually sit there for like 16 years, waiting till.
Are you talking specifically CHP?
No, just like go in there and bust the window out and jerk the guy out.
No.
Especially that quick. I mean, they only waited I think 3 minutes from the time he stopped to the time they went in. And I mean, they've sat there for hours sometimes.
So I wonder if there's been a change in the training.
No, CHP is definitely more aggressive than your local cops usually screw around. If they're going to go for it, it's going to be CHP. They will keep the pursuit longer. They don't give up your local jurisdictions will give up the cops, or give up the chase real easy, but CHP will stay with it. And they did, because the backstory is, and we'll get into it in a second, but he rammed a cop car, he was DUI stopped, put the red light, rammed the cop car in Chino, so they were pissed.
That's a felony stop. Yep.
You're
getting
pissed.
taken out of the car.
Yeah, they were pissed when they got. That's what I'm saying. I haven't seen that aggressive in action on a suspect in a while, but that's why, because he used a car. We'll get to that in a second. The opening deal with Trump and the team was, you saw Caroline Leavitt and Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary. First, they're bringing back jobs, as Trump mentioned. We'll get into some of the clips that I was able to get before the show started. And the same thing, bringing back jobs to China, and the whole Bezos fiasco going on, and let me say this, I probably bought maybe 5 or 10 things in my entire lifetime off of Amazon, only because I could only get them, or I could only find what I was looking for there. I don't shop in their stuff. As we are finding out, it's mostly low quality Chinese stuff. If it's good quality stuff, you can usually find it cheaper elsewhere. It has been my experience. So I just, for whatever reason, I just don't cotton to that whole thing. I think that's why our trade deficit and everything, and our inflation and deficit over a lot of places, is people have been addicted to that. But Bezos came on today, or posted, he was going to put on the Amazon website the Chinese tariff charge for everything that was coming on. Well, that cut off a firestorm. That's what you heard Caroline Leavitt after Scott Bessent, I should say, the Treasury Secretary, said, laid out the plans of that, the press conference earlier, of the negotiations going on and the tariffs and all the things they're putting together. So Bezos this morning said, we're going to put the Chinese tariff tax on every good and service on the Amazon website. Well, that touched off, obviously, a firestorm of exponential proportions, as they say. And
so they're still not learning from the whole Bud Light fiasco.
Well, I don't know about that. That's a more of a marketing thing.
Well, that's
that
what
was
he's doing with the Chinese tariff thing.
well, no, because it's different. He was trying to make the point, because it's my contention that, and a lot of people's contention, and probably the evidence shows a lot of this, that Bezos has been basically in the pocket of ping pong in the Chinese Communist Party.
Ping pong.
So, his whole existence, probably 75% of all the wealth he's amassed has been off of Chinese products, easily.
Yeah, he started Amazon as a bookseller.
Sure.
And then it branched out to music and then movies, and then it became this gigantic free-for-all, door-to-door Costco, essentially.
Yeah, he started off selling books.
Right.
And then expanded it to...
You know who funded that originally?
Yeah, his mom and dad.
Yeah, you better go back again.
So who gave him the original seed money, and how much?
I don't remember the amount.
His mom and dad... Here's how the story is. I remember Bezos said it. He's working in his garage, starting Amazon, or has the idea to do it for the book deal, his first venture. So he tells his mom and dad, I need 250 grand to do this, and you're probably going to lose it. So, but they pulled 250,000 out of whatever savings, pension. They went all in. That was the original seed money that started the Amazon book deal that he started, and then which basically became what it is. So
one of his main investors early on was Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, no, that's
that's probably one of the things that pushed him over the top. But yeah, to get the doors open.
Yes, it was
mommy and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad banked $250K to initially fire him off on the deal. So as you look on there with that, so this was my post this morning after I heard the news breaking on that and everything going out. And supposedly Breitbart had a story out, Bezos was backing up on the deal. But my deal was, okay, Amazon, how about a made in America option that filters out all the Chinese products on your stupid website, company, whatever? I bet you there would be like 3 products left.
Well, actually, no. I've purchased stuff that was, you can specifically put in the tagline, made in America or made in USA, and it will show made in America products. I actually think what this is a marketing ploy gone wrong. I think what it did is have the reverse effect. He was trying to show everybody what he perceives as this evil tariff, but in fact, all it did was clue everybody in to how much Chinese garbage he's selling.
No, this is my take on it. I believe Ping Pong got on the horn and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to, it's a political PR war. It's not a marketing. I mean, a marketing is trying to sell the product. This is Ping Pong and China trying to put the pressure on Donald J to dump the tariffs on China. And I think we got a story here on that, how that China is backing up. They're in a big panic because their basically shipments going out are like down, I don't know, 89% or something like that.
Well,
so
again,
they're looking at being in a humongous world of hurt.
Sure.
If this continues, so he probably got on. My belief is that he got on the horn to Bezos and said, "Okay, let's see this tactic work." Now, this may be one of the colossal political failures because it started blowing this morning. I mean, it was like all over the place. People are talking about it. And accordingly, I haven't had time to check, but I think Breitbart or somebody had is that Bezos was saying, oh, we were just floating this idea. We're not going to do it. When it came out this morning, it was like, hey, this is happening.
It's already too late by the time it hits the internet. people are going to remember it. The thing that everybody has to remember is all he did was take the Sears Roebuck model and apply it to the internet. I personally would love to see Sears and Roebuck reinvent itself as a American store for American-made products.
Bring back Kmart, which is down the tubes too, which bought out Sears, and it was Sears for 100 years. Then Kmart bought Sears. Kmart became so big, basically doing a Bezos undercutting Sears. Now Bezos and the Walmarts and stuff are doing that. Now Walmart, much to their, well, maybe a little bit to their credit, I don't want to get too hyped on it, they were actually going to start hyping Walmart. I don't know if they knew this was coming, but Walmart released a statement this morning. We're highlighting American-made products.
They did that before when Trump's first term. They did the same thing, and then because he was pushing American products. And then they're not stupid. You talk about, they know what their base is. Their base is lower middle income. And they have to be careful about shutting off the tap to cheap goods and services. But you know what? We all need to have a little pain in our life and quit buying this junk. And I'll tell you, I don't believe the Chinese could handle 90 days with these tariffs.
Oh, that's
90
what's
days,
coming out.
they will be done.
That's what this whole thing is about. The Chinese ping pong and China over there is panicking over this whole thing.
Well, yeah, because their economy is very fragile.
Yes.
They do not have a robust economy.
Well, they do, but it's so dependent on ours, and they've been artificially depressing their currency,
Correct.
making their products more cheaper that are making them more instead of the earrings that the missus is buying at $10, well, she's getting them for $5, so she's buying twice as much. if that. Now, this could be in, but I don't think it's going. Let's just use that example since we're picking on the chicks today.
I'm not.
Let's just say she's only buys one pair of earrings at that instead of two because they're $10. How is that materially going to affect your life? Now, that isn't taking food out of your table. If you don't have 37 cabinets of jewelry and you only have 18, your quality of life is not going to go down. Now you may at the ladies Republican ladies meeting or the bunco game, you may have a problem there. Now I'm not going to get into that part of the competition women have of the whole looks thing, but as far as affecting your life on your daily stuff, food, clothing may be a little bit different deal. It may be, but so you don't buy as many clothes.
I think you might be oversimplifying it slightly. I think what it all comes down to really is your purchasing power, your ability to buy goods and services. And if at the end of your month you have too much month for your money, you're going to look for ways to save. And so people naturally make a change in their buying habits. Certainly people that are well off enough not to have to buy goods and services made in China that can afford to make other options, or people that are politically minded or for whatever reason, like myself, choose to buy American products. I think that what you're looking at is, while for now your buying power may decrease slightly, your options will increase down the road. It's the pain you have to pay now to heal the body. The body's sick, so there's going to be some pain. Once this is over with and the body heals, you'll be stronger on the other side.
Right. That's what I'm getting at is, some things may go up of essential products that you need that are made in China, and here's the deal. When we're hit this point next year, we're coming into, because then the election season is going to crank up. We got the midterms and a lot of governor's races and Senate races and local races and everything. If the Trump, Bessent, Lutnick, Navarro strategy works, things will be cooking because a lot of things will either be moved. I think they're very close to making a deal with India, which has almost as many people as China and the ability to manufacture stuff cheap in part of that. So if a lot of this stuff gets moved away from the Communist Chinese Party by the year, there's going to be, like the egg deal, just from Biden killing 100 million chickens, there'll be some price spikes, but then there'll be stuff that'll come down. But I think what's going to happen, if they play the strategy out, we're going to get back to, let's say, an economy we've seen in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s up to 2000, where most of the stuff was made here in America. We exported a lot of stuff. It's just been in the last 25 years or so that we have been on this trajectory that we have shipped all these manufacturing jobs to.
It started with the normalization of trade with China under the Nixon administration, with Henry Kissinger going over there because he didn't want them to fall under the communist overreaching of Russia, which was nonsense. But nonetheless, that's how it started. And then by the time you get to the Clinton regime, everything's for sale. They're for sale. They don't care. Sure, well, you want military secrets. You want the new propeller that we just developed for our subs that makes them quiet and you can't detect. Here you go. Oh, it just happened to got snuck under the door. No, they gave it away for a price.
So this is the chart starting in 1990. So George Poppy Bush, as I said, this is the monolithic presidency. And this is when NAFTA and GATT and all these stupid trade agreements, WTO, all that stuff started coming in. After Reagan was out, Poppy Bush is in. So 1990, top exporter, United States to 175 countries, China 8. By 2000, not too bad, 155.15. Not too big of a deal at that point. 2010, now they've got everything. From 1990 to 2000, they were setting up the infrastructure more to move the manufacturing to China, the big companies, oligarchs, establishment. So from 2000 to 2010, you really see the shift starting. Now we're getting almost close to even where it wasn't even close in 10 years.
A lot of that is oil. A lot of it was when they Obama did that. As you can see, that's during the Obama administration. When they cut back oil production and exportation of oil, I will say that's probably fully a third. But the rest of it is also just influence of.
So now we're down to, in 2024, 14 years later, 125 companies. China is the top exporter. We're only 35.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that. That's not sustainable.
Correct.
You're not going to survive as an economy against China when they're in that position. But the good thing is, if you look at Vietnam, they're ready to do business. Trump said we're going to put tariffs. He said, "Hey, whoa, wait a minute. We don't want tariffs. We'll do a quid pro quo with you."
That's what Modi, or whatever his name is, over there in India. He said,
they recognize math. They understand it. They understand that if you want to trade, and all the guy is saying is, he's not saying you can't trade. He's saying if you want to trade with us, you can't charge more for our goods coming in than we charge for yours. That's quid pro quo. What are you going to do? I mean, we have to have something logical on both sides. You have to equal the balance. That's just general accounting 101. We've had a trade imbalance with China, as you can see, since 2010, a serious imbalance. Half. By 2010, you're half.
Right. That's why I say you're almost half. That's what I'm saying. From 1990 to 2000, they had to build the infrastructure in China to do it. You just don't, you got to have buildings, electricity, roads, bridges, infrastructure, everything else in there to make it work. You just don't all of a sudden decide, oh, we're going to be a manufacturing superpower. So they started that. That's why the trade agreements were, and that's why the deal was, back in the 90s when they were from Poppy Bush, especially to Bill Clinton, when they were putting all these trade deals together with that, that's where you saw all this stuff go extremely haywire in everything else. But that's one of the very, very, very interesting, as they say.
But you remember Ross Perot said, if you go through with this, you're that giant sucking
Yes, I
sound.
remember 1992.
Yep, he knew it.
People didn't pay attention. Well, they did, but then the whole, wherever the wheels went off of that whole thing.
Well, he was sabotaged because he was making too much sense. He was like
That
Ron
was
Paul.
Probably, you want to talk about election interference, go back to
100%.
1992
Yep.
and the Perot, Poppy Bush, Clinton race. It wasn't stealing, at that time it was not stealing votes, but that's all ancient history now, water under the bridge. Want to get into this one because the report broke yesterday, as it was reported in the Daily Mail and the New York Times. Very interesting. Bombshell new report reveals who made the fatal mistake that caused the Black Hawk to collide with the jet and kill 67. So for back in the day, for those that didn't or don't remember, a couple months ago or whenever it was, in Washington, D.C., plane is coming in, 64 people on board, ready to land at Reagan Airport, which is right along the river, right where D.C. State line is the Potomac River and Virginia. So the military was doing a I would not say training mission.
No, that's what it was.
Well,
it was
training or update, make sure you're doing that. So there's a lot of military helicopter traffic in Washington, D.C., the District of Criminals, because you have, obviously, the president, but you have the Secretary of State military stuff. So there's a lot of military traffic, especially helicopters, rolling a lot of dignitaries in and through there all the time, plus the planes, which people have said Reagan Airport's been too busy, but that's a story again for a different day. So obviously the tragedy is, and especially today with the cell phone era, and everybody's got cameras, and there was security cameras looking dead at it, you're seeing the plane come in, you're seeing this helicopter going in there about 200-300 feet, you're seeing the helicopter coming and the plane coming in to land, and kaboom. The helicopter ran right into the plane. So there was a whole rigmarole going because it came out that the pilot who was being checked out, updated, trained, whatever, was a female pilot. Trump, and like the next morning, I believe, on his press conference said, we pretty much knew what went down here. And everybody's going, oh, everybody's blaming the helicopter pilot, because everybody looked at it. You could not, from the video and all the stuff, most people are looking, the airliner did nothing out of the ordinary wrong in the situation. It looks like this helicopter runs right into that. So as the report came out yesterday, as I read it, about 15 seconds before impact with the helicopter and the plane, air traffic control says, hey, you need to make a turn. Do you see the aircraft in there? You're on a collision course. So about 7 seconds later, the instructor, head guy in there, or the guy that's checking this rod out, says, hey, you need to make a turn. Well, she drives 5 to 7 seconds later into the plane. Dwayne.
So a couple of things. This woman pilot had not flown a helicopter for 2 years. She was on a foreign assignment. She had come back to get requalled and get current. They were doing night vision goggle runs, so they both probably most likely were wearing night vision goggles, which limits your field of vision from 180 degrees to about 40. The other thing you had was a communication error when the controller issued instructions for them to remain clear of the approaching traffic, which was the airliner that was established on final, they were keying up their mic and didn't hear the last, even though I listened to it and they were given clear instructions to see and avoid. And from what the male that was on the, he must have been the instructor pilot, he was on the radio, which is standard operating procedure. The person not flying uses the radio and the person flying does not. So he said, you know, see and avoid. So he said, we'd like visual separation. Controller says, you know, okay, you know, your confirmed visual separation, do you have the landing traffic in sight? And he didn't say yes. What he said was, you know, confirm visual separation, we'll make our turn behind traffic. Well, you also have to understand that published traffic pattern for helicopters is at 200 feet. For the life of me, and it literally goes across the landing path of the approach going into that runway. At the very last minute also, you had that, they have 2 runways on that, for that compass heading. What they did was had them sidestep to the closer runway, which is a common practice. I've done it a bunch of times. Sometimes for landing traffic, they'll have you do that for separation. Then what happens, you have all this comedy of errors. So they swap over. The helicopter may have looked over and assumed they were on the opposite, the runway further away, instead of the closer runway. And then they can't see because they're wearing MBGs. You got the communication error. Their altimeters were out of sync, which is what tells you what your true altitude is off the ground, you know, corrected for barometric pressure, so that you will have an accurate. But they also have a thing called a radar altimeter in there, which is going to give you better accuracy. So for whatever reason, they weren't looking at the radar altimeter. He told her, and they have it on the cockpit voice recorder from the helicopter. He told her, hey, you're too high, get down. Well, in a helicopter, you have a collective and a cyclic. And so the cyclic is gives you your this, and your collectives for up and down. She didn't drop it. She's just sitting there kind of barely cruising along. She could have pulled that thing up into a hover right where it stood and stopped that thing, flipped around, and avoided the traffic.
So let's go with the theory that's being floated that she didn't hear, or they didn't hear, or the mics were keyed at the same time, or whatever. If the dude who's sitting, and if you're sitting, I would, correct me if I'm wrong, but okay, you're the pilot, I'm the guy checking you out. We're sitting like this close together.
Yeah, right, just like we are right now. Yeah.
So if I say, hey, bank this thing left.
Which he did.
Whether we have our mics on or not, or keys, or radio failure, or anything, how could you not hear, hey, if you even if you didn't see, which it's almost an impossibility the way that all the evidence there that they couldn't see there was a plane they were about to hit, which would seem like air traffic controllers telling them to turn, the instructor pilot, certifier, or whatever he was, is telling her, hey, you need to bank left. And she just...
Yeah, he's telling her you need to get down and make a left turn.
Yeah.
And she's not complying with his commands. What he should have done at that point is say, my aircraft...
Grab the stick. That's what I was wondering. Why didn't he grab the stick?
Because you know why. Because she's a woman, and if he'd have done that, he'd have had to write a report up in her file, and then he's going to get talked to and say, hey, now, wait a second, we got to back this up. But this time, unfortunately, a lot of people got killed.
Yes, this is exactly, because that's when Trump came out and everybody's saying, oh, she was the best pilot. And remember, right after the crash, and because it came out, first they weren't telling us, we knew who was on or who was piloting and everything on the airliner and everything. And they were, what was like a day or two before we found out who the military pilot was. Then we found out it was a female pilot, and then it was all, oh, she couldn't have made an error, that she was best, 111% qualified, top 6.0 grade point average, top pilot, but ever that went through the military, any sort of, we got this whole rigmarole. And then of that, if this is the case that happened, and it was because of the whole hate the straight white male, DEI culture, you can't say anything, 67 frickin' people are dead over this.
Now, you also have to understand there's another component to this. You've got a controller that's working 4 screens because the other guy on his shift called off. Now, this is a very busy airspace. There's a lot going on all the time. And the controller, best he can, is I'm going to try to get in the controller's head a little bit here. He's thinking, oh, Army helicopter guy, these guys are pros. They know what they're doing. They fly the road all the time. They know what to do. He's saying he's got the arriving flight visual. We're good. I'll cut him loose. He can go to own nav, resume own navigation, make sure that you're, that you see and avoid, you're cleared on the route. He now goes to the rest of his traffic on his other 3 screens, and because he's got other stuff he's got to do. So partially my thing is, my first response to this was, who in the hell approved this pattern? I don't care if helicopters can go straight up and down. You are taught from day one to respect the flight path. There's you just don't interfere with that. You never get that close to a landing aircraft. There's a pattern, and there's a published approach when these jets are being used. And I just couldn't understand why in the hell they would approve something like that. I mean, they had 85 accidents in that area in close calls in 3 years. 85. And the NTSB under Pete Buttigieg did nothing. They sat on their hands because, hey, nobody's died yet. So now they've died. Now that route's no longer available, and they don't fly across the flight path onto that approach. So, which, like I said, I'm baffled. Even if I was the pilot, I would have accepted that
for
clearance.
alleged child sexual abuse in the Inland Empire. 70 were arrested for various crimes in a sweep by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Good job, cops. Gas tank exploding, the natural gas tank exploding in Hemet.
That's the gas tank exploding.
On this, there you see it, house fire going on in there. Hemet was a poppin', as they say. 2 killed in a fiery solo Tesla crash in Claremont. You see the grisly details of that. Action 9 News, another one shindig. Truck crashes into abandoned apartment buildings and lights that up on fire. That's from Action I News. City of Riverside has some tutti frutti cars they're trying to pawn off. You taxpayers, us, were subject probably to gazillions of dollars for this tomfoolery. Possession of illegal drugs was the most frequent crime last week in Coachella. Handicap parking citations also rose, so be on the lookout if you're going to Coachella. In the case of the People versus Caceres, the defendant shot and killed the victim in Blythe in retaliation for a narcotics robbery that occurred the night of, we don't know. Man charged with the attempted murder after shooting in Chino parking lot. Good job with that. Weekend train and trolley rides at the Paris train station. So if you want to have some fun this weekend, that'll be good. Suspect arrested for petty theft with prior convictions in Rancho Cucamonga. The suspect was also, why do they say transient? He's a vagrant. Jonathan Nicholas Lewis, 35, age 35, transient out of San Bernardino. So good arrest there by the Rancho C. Berdue cops. Harupa Valley cops make a meth bust. And good old prank there, in Banning, there on Ramsey Street, somebody put a deer on top of the bus stop. And that'll do it for the local news report today. I couldn't believe, 70 arrests in the Inland Empire in the last week for suspects in child sexual abuse cases. That is like 1,000% off the charts. Another thing about this whole China, Mexico illegal immigration crap, along with the whole trade deal, which is a money deal, the Chinese cartels and the Mexican cartels have not only been running the drug trade, they've been running the sex trafficking trade and the labor trafficking trade with this whole Biden debacle we've had the last 4 years. This is the consequence of that. And then California, we will get to it tomorrow. Shannon Grove last year finally got it to where it was a felony if you're sex trafficking anyone 15 or under. And she had to make that deal. She'd been working since she got in the legislature for 7 or 8 years. She had to make the deal because they wouldn't, last year when they finally passed it, they would not allow 16 and 17-year-olds to be included in that. So it came back up today. So there was a Democrat lady, former prosecutor, who just got elected, who put that bill back up. I think it's AB 367 with that. And she's finding the resistance. And I will tell you this is my theory of it. This is Scott Wiener and the crew up there, the gay dudes that have been pushing this whole thing. Because they don't want to take, if they start, you're going to take away their little toys of 16 and 17-year-olds. They were bitching about the 15. And everybody's been pussyfooting around this whole thing. And outrage, and I get it, the lady prosecutor said, let's start calling it out what and who is behind this.
So sex trafficking is okay as long as it's 17 and up.
Well, yeah, because
okay.
they don't.
Well, that's good.
This
Good
is what I believe. I believe especially the gay dudes like Scott Wiener and the whole crew up there. You're going to take away their little. That's what they were the ones rumored behind. Oh no, you're not going to go 16 and 7. We will. The public pressure was so good they had to do something. But Shannon Grove said, "Hey, I had to cut that deal to get it passed." And if I didn't cut that deal eliminating 16 and 17-year-olds, they said flat, no way it's going to pass. We don't care if they burn the Capitol down.
I'm just do not understand how you can even come down to, well, you have to make it under 16 for it to pass. So sex trafficking is okay?
Yeah, again, it's a misdemeanor if you're 16 or 17.
Okay, so it's okay to take somebody that's homeless, an adult, let's say 25, and sex traffic somebody that's 25 because it's only a misdemeanor. You're essentially enslaving a person and taking advantage of somebody.
That's why and even though she's a Democrat, even Eggman, total lunacy nutcase on that was up there saying, hey, this is not going to stand. She was castigating the Democratic Party. They will not say where it's coming from, but I'm telling them, prove me wrong. This is coming from the side of Scott Wiener and that whole gay caucus up there, LGBTQ, that they've been trying to run us. They're the ones that did this. They're the ones. Prove me wrong, because everybody else is like going, WTF. And thank goodness that Democrat prosecutor, I'll get her name tomorrow, that she brought this back up. And Shannon Grove said, hey, The only reason it was taken out because it wouldn't have passed last year as it was.
I'm really. I shouldn't be shocked. Why should I be shocked? Look at the state of California now.
Okay, 30 seconds, guys. 30 seconds, guys. And I can hear both of you. Woo!
Thank you. Yes.
Hey,
Finally.
plus.
That Sean said we'll be joining the Mighty at KMT 1490 AM, as we usually do, every Monday through Friday. We'll pick up some of the topics. Trump 100 days.
Here we go. 10 seconds.
Child sex hillbilly hoedown around.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, management, employees, or affiliate.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire. And the aforementioned AM band, join your vast video on the UFB Network, Rumble, X, YouTube. Check us all out, subscribe, do all that good stuff. On that first, you want to go out and check IE Newswire. On that, FB, all that stuff. Go, or Rumble, YouTube, X, wherever you want to watch it. Chino, dude rams a cop car. I think regular Chino police, DUI suspect, he runs. CHP picks up, runs him into LA. They grab him. The chase ends in LA. And CHP, like I said, they're the most aggressive on this whole deal as far as the chases. They don't give it up like the others seem to do. So they finally got it stopped. And since that's a felony assault on a police officer, and they don't really like that. They get really testy.
They take it personally.
Yes, they do take that personally. Let's see if you can run the videotape. I think 11 had the best shot of it.
Plan. So now doors open. My guess is they're going to pull this guy. He's out. Is that the airbag? It's hard to tell if the airbag deployed during that whole thing.
It's possible.
And they are not playing.
Let the thumping
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
My guess is they're going to pull this
Let's see
guy.
if we can get, I want to
He's
get
out.
Let's see if we can back
Is that
it.
the airbag? This is tense moments here.
There
Oh,
they
boom.
are. Yes.
Okay,
First
so now
they get the hammer
they're
out
done.
and
They're
back.
breaking that
Look
window.
at how
You
tough
can
the
imagine
glass
the glass is
today.
shattering at this potential suspect too. They're not letting this happen. And this suspect has to know they are not playing. So now doors open. My guess is they're going to pull this guy. He's out. Is that the airbag? It's hard to tell if the airbag deployed during that whole thing.
It's possible.
And they are not playing.
So there you go on that. Got Dwayne in here. Does that bring back some memories?
I may need a drink.
Oh, he was driving, but both of us, at the time in 1981, we were involved in the
82.
longest, 82, okay.
July 3rd weekend.
Yes, okay.
1982.
Of that, we were involved in the long 56 minutes, I think it was. It was a little less than almost an hour of that longest police chase. They grabbed him out. He was unlucky. When they grabbed him out, mashed his head in the pavement. I was and they don't do this anymore, but the sidewalks in Riverside where we stopped, it happened to be where we had like 5 foot of grass and then the sidewalk. So when they grabbed me and did it, I mean, they were pounding my head in the dirt. So I didn't, but when they got me up or walked me to the car and cuffed me and they're walking him, I mean, blood's running all over his face and stuff like that. And we didn't ram them of all that stuff.
No, they got pissed because I got out of their stupid pit maneuver.
Right. Well, this guy got out of the first one, but they got him on the second. But I think he was running out of gas because after that he just stopped. So, but in this one, like, they didn't wait for hours. They only waited like 2 or 3 minutes, and it was out with the hammer,
Started
smashed the
clubbing
deal,
the
and
guy.
then grabbed that, boom, 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 boom.
Well,
And I believe, of that,
Don't run from the police.
Well, but there's a fine line of this, but the pendulum has swung too far of, oh, we don't do anything.
So you're saying it's coming back now?
Yes.
Well, I think for the longest time, if you remember in the 90s, it was like all the rage. There was one like every week you'd come home, turn the TV
we've been having this'll go. We haven't had for about 2 months. It goes in cycles. It'll calm down like for a month or two. The last 2 weeks, almost every night. I mean, we've had one of these on every day the past 2 weeks. They've been police chases, and I mean good ones like this. I mean, not well. I guess probably a bad word, but hey, I used it.
Well, it depends on.
Yeah, it depends on. I would tell you that it's just like the restrictor plate crashes, demolition derby, night of destruction, or anything like that. The biggest. This is why they have helicopters in the air and all the news stations covered. Their biggest ratings is this stuff right here.
Well, people like to see carnage, right? People want to see carnage.
By far.
They want to see wrecks. They want to see violence.
A week ago, they blew some dude's head off on this stuff. I mean,
I didn't see that. What happened?
I don't. It's on. Go check IE Newswire. We have it was on one of our intro videos of that where it ended and the cop shot the dude dead in a doornail. So again,
this guy's lucky because he had 3 guns pointing at.
Oh,
imagine if one guy got a little nervous there, just one and itchy.
Oh, don't. That was my biggest fear
because
they pulled him out first. So
357 to
yes.
Temple.
So I'm sitting. So one guy dives in through the driver's door where he was. 357 on this side. The other
cocks it.
Yes,
at my temple.
They're cocked. Both of them on my temples, sitting like that, and I'm thinking, I hope you guys don't sneeze, flinch. You don't know how still you can be until you have 2 357s pointed right at the temples
you got
of
the
your
shotgun. I got the
no,
357.
it was 2 357.
Oh, okay.
You got the first guy because I was still in the seat. So they just grabbed you through the driver's door. So then once they got you out and they started beating you, then the dude came through. He came as soon
through
as
the driver's door.
As soon as they got you out, they came through. That guy bailed through that. The other guy opens the door, and like I say, they got 2 357s sitting right in the temples of my head.
Yeah, the guy when he came in at me, stuck it in my temple, and I mean he pressed it and cocked it. Now,
I got the dual 357s,
which is really bright. He's going to shoot you through your head and hit his partner.
That's what I was thinking. If somebody rolls this off, there's going to be 2 dead people one way or the other.
No kidding.
I mean, I'm thinking these guys are not. But I mean, like I said, you don't know how still you can be.
And you were just in the passenger seat.
No kidding.
As if you have some control over what's going on.
We've been through that before, but I mean that's as close as I've seen to our ordeal I've seen in a long time. I haven't seen them drag the dude out of the car and.
No, when Rodney King happened, that was the closest thing I saw. I was like, oh, I've seen that. I've watched that movie.
I don't remember them. Usually they shoot through the windows with the tear gas, and they sit there and screw around for an hour or 2 or 3 sometimes. That was only like from the time he stopped, that was like 2 or 3 minutes, and the dude was out there with the hammer busting the glass through.
I remember a chase that ended in Compton, and the cops surrounded a Suburban that was all blacked out, and the cops shot. They formed a circle around it, and I'm watching this thinking, oh, this is going to be interesting. And they start lighting off rounds, and bullets are flying. They don't hit the suspect. One of the other guys on the other side got clipped. So, I mean, there's like 12 cops all shooting at the same time. You talk about Keystone cops. I mean,
like I say, when they did that, I'm thinking, holy crap. I said, if one of these guys lights off, 2 of us are going to be dead, because that 357 wouldn't have hardly slowed down when it went through me. And it'd have been, and these guys are like right here both the side. I'm thinking, you guys are, if you sacrifice me, I'm taking one of you with me.
It's 2 pounds. When you have that thing cocked, it's about 2.5 pounds on one of those. That's nothing. If you make a mistake, 2.5 pounds is nothing. You know,
Thank goodness it didn't get to that point. Like I said, you do not know how still you can be. Because they sat, it seemed like, I'd say probably about 5 seconds. It seemed like 362 years as you're, as you're sitting there. Because I already had my hands on the dash. So, and then when they pulled that maneuver, I'm thinking, I hope somebody, even like you said, I hope somebody, they don't sneeze, somebody doesn't flinch, something, because it's going to be lights out. But anyway, Donald, we didn't get to, we did on the opening intro, and we got about 10, 15 minutes here today. We'll get into some more of them tomorrow. Donald Trump, 100 days, that's been a tradition in the television era. They kind of, like 100 days of the presidency, that's kind of a watermark, and the president usually makes an address. Well, Trump flew all the way to Macomb County, actually Warren, Michigan, one of the places he won, and eventually won that state. In 16 and 24, lost it in 20 to the ding dong, but hey, that's water under the bridge. Let's see what Donald J. has to say. They break out in the chant, obviously, of USA.
Thank you very much. Hello, Michigan. Hello, we love you, Michigan. We love you. We just had the biggest victory in Michigan. They said, sir, it's going to be hard. Well, we won it twice. We actually won it 3 times. You want to really know? But I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful state. I love this state. Got a lot of auto jobs coming. Watch what's happening. The companies are coming in by the tens. You got to see what's happening. They all want to come back to Michigan and build cars again. You know why? Because of our tax and tariff policy. They're coming from all over the world. They're coming up and they're opening up plants and they're talking to us all day and all night. They want to get here and they're coming in at levels you've never seen before. And I want to thank the auto workers for your support. That was great. But I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people.
1,432%. Whether you like what Trump and his administration has done, whether you hate the pebbles he steps over getting on the helicopter or Air Force One, hands down. And like I say, I don't really remember it, but I can go back to I've been on the top side of the grass since the John F. Kennedy administration. Hands down. Nobody has accomplished as much in the first 100 days. Nobody has informed the American people. Being on, I think, every month, there's been a few weekends he's taken off. At the first, he was doing 7 days a week. Every Monday through Friday, he answered questions, he addressed the public, answered questions from the press, multiple ones, every Monday through Friday. No other president has done that in the history of the United States of America.
I think you're looking at a lot of that is due to the internet age, obviously. But nonetheless, not taking anything away from just his personality and how he chooses to communicate. He's an effective communicator. Say what you want about Clinton and Obama, they were. Reagan certainly was. I may not have liked the other two's policies, but you can't take away from the fact that they communicated well. Donald Trump is by all margins, done far more in his first 100 days than Biden did for 4 years.
1,000%.
And it's just the way it
This is the best, they say, 100-day start of any president in history, and everyone is saying it. We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in. And week by week, we're ending illegal immigration. We're taking back our jobs and protecting our great American auto workers and all of our workers, frankly. We're protecting all of our workers. We're restoring the rule of law, which was sort of out the window with this crazy guy we had. How the hell did that guy ever become president? Could somebody explain to me? How the hell did that happen? There's my friend, Blacks for Trump. I like that guy. He follows me. He follows me. We love you. Your whole group has been so supportive over the years. I want to thank you. Everyone thinks I pay you a fortune. I don't know. I don't even know who the hell he is. I just like him.
That's why Trump, in my opinion, has not lost his core base. The people that support Trump, you might have a few in the margins that are teed off about this and or that. I even think his core base, and we went into it yesterday, there's a real, never happened in the history. Before it used to be, as you started out 18 to 65 plus, you went center right in your politics. It's exactly the opposite now. There is a very weird phenomenon happening. And I think my opinion, like I said yesterday, but I get your take on it. My opinion is the younger people see their future not as good as their parents. Their parents and grandparents are trying to protect their last few years of what they have on this earth. But I think that's why you're seeing the shift in the politics of younger people being very center right, older people trending left.
I was listening to Tucker Carlson's show, and he had one of the major pollsters on, and the guy was saying that what they've found out recently is that in the young generation, Gen Zs, the males from 18 to 34 are more right-wing, more conservative, and the females are left-wing. So you got a chasm. You've got a split.
That's
between
always
the
been the
genders.
case. You've always had that case.
Right, but what we're seeing is a return to the way it was when you and I were younger. And so I think this leftist cabal of nuts that support Bernie and AOC.
Okay, let's take the smarter half of the population. Let's take every 10-year deal. Which would be your guess in the female population? Which 10-year bracket, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 on up, which bracket do you think is the most conservative, MAGA, Trump supporting?
50 to 60.
30 to 39.
Really? That is
and this is what's
encouraging.
This is what my thing is. What do you think is the most liberal age bracket in there?
Oh, probably 30 to 40.
No, they were the most conservative.
Right,
40 to 49.
40,
Just
yeah.
the next 10-year gap up is the most liberal ones of that deal. We got some weird,
I think
unusual,
there was that
never happened before dynamics going on.
Yeah, there was that generation right there, 40 to 50, that somehow slid through the cracks and went off the rails.
That's mid to late Zers, is that, or I mean
Right.
Xers, you should say.
Late Xers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, mid to late Xers.
So those people, those were the big Bernie supporters, and the AOC supporters that you have now. You know, they came up and they had a big meeting in Idaho, and CNN's, oh, look at all the people they have in Idaho. They went to the stupid university, to Boise State, for God's sakes. Of course they're going to find a bunch of libtard teachers. What they did not show you was all the people out in front with signs telling them, this is a red state, go home. You know, we're keeping our guns, we're keeping our Bibles, we're keeping our, you know, our stuff the way we want it. It's a red state.
But that's why I say, what's the interesting phenomenon of that? Okay, mid to late Xers, women going liberal, the most conservative ones are early to mid millennials.
And again, interesting that so what happened was apparently that generation coming behind Gen X wised up quicker than Gen X. So the Gen X are the product of the baby boomers, our generation. And so when the Gen Xers started having kids, they looked at their parents and went, wow, there's a lot of failures here. I don't want to be that way.
Well, I really think it's and starting with the millennials, the 1980s, those born from 81 up, they were the first ones to start getting the inkling, we're not going to have as bright a future as our parents' grandparents.
For the first time in many decades.
Now that they are in that 30 to 39, they're either on their own, hopefully, they're on their own, or the ones that have started families or having kids because they had them later, if they did. So they're now into the deal and they're going, hey, we got the whole enchilada. Now you go down to the Zers and whatever ones are doing. And even between 18 to 29, if you break that down into split, the 18 to 22-year-olds are more conservative or right-leaning than 22 to 23 to 29. We get some weird, unusual, fascinating dynamics going on. I'm going to cut one more clip of Donald J.
Haven't changed. You've lost a couple of pounds. Oh, he's probably getting to one of those jabbers. You've lost a couple of pounds. You look good. And I have Mr. Wall here. This guy. How many rallies have you gone to? Like hundreds, and we love him here. The Wall. One day I'm gonna get that suit and I'm gonna wear it on stage.
That's the guy that
We
has
appreciate it,
the,
fellas.
the suit that's the wall of that, and the immigration and the whole thing. And hopefully we'll get, obviously it's 100-day speech, and Donald Trump can go on for 16 and a half hours of that. I caught about the first 30 minutes, and I have like 6 more clips to go on this whole thing of that. Hopefully we'll get to more of those tomorrow when we come in. But for the nattering nabobs of negativism, and they've tried, they couldn't stop Trump in 16. They did in 20. They couldn't stop him in 24. They're trying to destroy or throw roadblocks into that of everything else. I think the rally here, all the stuff, Scott Bessent, Bezos backing up, Ping Pong looking nervous. I think brighter days ahead, like Bessent said, we're going to have some trade deals coming up here very, very soon with the tariffs and deals with some of these other countries. I think that's what's got China. We got about a minute or so left.
Well, I think China's very nervous. They were basically using the just-in-time management philosophy of the Japanese. They were keeping the floods going with a lot of cheap goods, and now that there's any kind of interruption to that, they're getting nervous. Now, all they would have to do is take the tariffs off and equalize things, and we would be wide open to their markets. But they're so short-sighted, they want it all, and I'm very surprised actually that they don't do it and just take the look and see method of, well, he's only going to be in for 4 years. Even if Vance gets in, it'll only be 8 years, and then they'll be gone, and we'll get somebody new in. And go back to same old, meet the new boss, same as the old boss kind of stuff. I would think.
It's going to be a very interesting dynamic. And like Trump said, there's going to be some bumps in the road of that. It's only going to be perfect. Let's see. The biggest question is, where are we going to be in a year from
As you know,
now?
I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Toyota or Subaru, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10. 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Lots of stuff. Got to put the pressure back on the California Assembly and Senate. Let's get felony should be a felony for sex trafficking
At all.
anywhere, for anything.
Right.
Of that whole thing. That Donald J's got him on the run. Hopefully that continues. Of that, the nattering nabobs of negativism are going to lose. We're not going to let that happen. Again, 70 arrests in the Inland Empire for sex trafficking. We need to buckle that down. That should be totally unacceptable on any level. Some more things we need. There's bright spots, but there are things that we still have to work on for a brighter future for us all. That'll do it for today, as we usually say at this time. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid.
All right, guys, all clear.
You got it.
Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you Friday, Roy.
You got it.
Take care.
Bye now.